This podcast is hosted by RPP.
If you are easily spooked, creeped, or offended, this might not be the podcast for you.
Hello, Fridgies. It's Gemma here from I Think My Fridge is Haunted, a very creepy podcast for very creepy people, I should say. We are here for week 5 of the mushroom trial. This video is a little bit late, and I'll tell you why. I originally recorded this on Friday and went on to delete the footage. So I'm back here. It's Sunday. I'm hoping to have this out by Monday for you guys. If you're new to this case, we have a whole catalogue of videos dedicated to this case going back to way before the trial. If you're on YouTube, you can navigate over to our playlists and you can find all the videos that we've done in order. This week was not that exciting in court, I'll have to be honest with you. As always, I've read everything and I'm going to give you the best bits. There certainly were a few interesting points that I'm going to take you through. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe to us. We will be getting back to our dark history usual content at some point in the very near future. Lana has moved outside of Melbourne, so we are trying to make this work on some level. We don't know exactly how I Think My Fridge is Haunted is going to look in the future, but yeah, we are probably going to start remotely filming so that we can start doing episodes together again. So on Monday, the 26th of May, a lady from the Department of Health took the stand. Her name is Sally Ann Atkinson. Her team investigated the death cap poisonings that took place at the lunch on the 29th of July 2023. She details how she had several phone calls and a series of text messages between herself and Erin Patterson in the weeks following that lunch. She was trying to figure out, was this just a case of food poisoning? And if so, was it linked to a supermarket chain or was it something else? And was it a standalone incident? And if it was linked to supermarkets, could that mean that there was contaminated food that was a danger to the general population? Well, Miss Atkinson said that during her communications with EPAT, Erin kept on giving her, quote, different information. And as soon as Miss Atkinson found out that death cap mushrooms were involved in this poisoning situation, she immediately took her investigation up in terms of urgency. The health department put together a team and they included food safety officers who had to potentially take mushrooms off the shelves of supermarkets. But Miss Atkinson knew that there were no other reports of anyone else within the community getting sick. So it was determined at a pretty early stage that this was an isolated incident. So during her search for answers, Miss Atkinson noted that she spoke to Erin Patterson by phone on August 1st. So this was, 3 days after the lunch. She called her on her mobile and she asked her about her symptoms. And I said I wasn't going to go into this again, but EPAT told her, as she's told a few people within this case, that she had, quote, explosive diarrhea in the days after the lunch. Notably, on the Saturday of the lunch and into the Sunday of the lunch. Can I remind you of some of the details of those days? Well, on the Sunday, Erin was said to be so ill that she had to go to the toilet every few minutes or so. Meanwhile, on July 30, the day after the lunch, Don and Gail Patterson, that's Simon's parents, rang Simon because they were so sick. They were taken that day by ambulance to Dandenong Hospital. And Dandenong Hospital is from Leongatha, I would say is about an hour 20 minutes, hour quarter perhaps. Now, Simon's got a lot on his plate that day, excuse the pun, because then he has to go over to Heather's house and Ian, who are his aunt and uncle, and then he takes them to Corumburra Hospital, but there was no room, unfortunately, there, so then he drives them over to Leongatha Hospital. And them needing a ride to hospital just shows you how sick they were. Now, my dad's in his 70s, and it would take a lot for him to accept a ride for someone else, from somebody else. You know what I mean? He's going to drive himself until the day that it literally cannot happen anymore. So for them to ask him to take them to hospital means to me that they were pretty sick. So meanwhile, Erin, who's apparently got explosive diarrhea, spends the day not checking on Simon's family members, but taking her son to his flying lesson in Tyab, over an hour away, by the way, before giving the children the leftovers from the lunch, which are the reasons Simon's family are in hospital. Make it make sense to me, because it doesn't make sense. Now, the health department representative, Miss Atkinson, said that Miss Patterson told her everyone at the lunch had eaten the same food, which, of course, we have our theories about that, but that's another video. EPAT told Miss Atkinson the mushrooms were from Woolworths and that she'd also mixed in some dried mushrooms from that fabled Asian grocer that nobody can find. Now, Miss Atkinson was onto that pretty early. She was onto this weird story that she was on about the Asian grocer, because she noticed that the Asian grocer story that EPAT was saying, she was telling her, was changing. EPAT told her initially, allegedly, that she used some of the dried mushrooms in a pasta dish some months or weeks before the July 29 lunch. But in another conversation, EPAT told her she had never cooked a meal with the dried mushrooms before the beef Wellington lunch. It's really weird. Now, on a more somber note, on Monday, the trial also heard from pathologist Brian Beer. Now, he said that the autopsies on Don, Gail, and Heather in the days after their deaths revealed extensive liver damage and organ failure consistent with death cap poisoning. And this is just tragic. The damage that is done to the liver in such an amazingly short time, it's brutal. It really hits home to me just how dangerous and just how lethal this type of poison is. Now, my husband has kidney disease and his kidneys have been degenerating for the past 5 years or so. And, we thought that his kidney degeneration was fast. This was a matter of, 2-3 days? This is unbelievable. And Don even had a liver transplant, which unfortunately didn't work. They were unable to save him. Now let's talk about the house search on the 5th of August, because a lot was said about this during the trial on week 5. So the search warrant was carried out by a Detective Sergeant Luke Farrell, and he's from the Homicide Squad. He carried out that search warrant at Erin's Leongatha home on August 5th. It's interesting to note that Erin had access to her mobile phone during this whole search. Also, just on another note, just an FYI, her children were present at the house search as well. The court was shown photographs from the search, and one photo shows the contents of the bottom left drawer, which included a set of manuals, including a manual for a Sunbeam Food Lab electronic dehydrator. Remember that dehydrator that she said she never had? So Sergeant Farrell says the officers also found cut fruit on a platter in the fridge and a white jug with brown liquid. So these were the leftovers from the lunch. So that was the fruit platter and the gravy. Now that Cooler Master PC that we keep on hearing about was located in the bedroom. They also found a black Samsung phone, a tablet device on a carpeted floor of one of the children's bedrooms. They also found items on the couch, including headphones and a tablet. Now, there was also a photo of the open dishwasher with plates inside. Apparently, it was very neatly stacked. There was also an open drawer with some other plates. However, none of the plates were grey or tan. And can I remind you that Ian and Heather had noticed that the 4 guests at the lunch ate from grey plates, while EPAT ate from a tan, smaller plate. Now, prosecutor Jane Warren was right onto this, and she said, quote, In the video that you viewed, did you observe any plates that match the 4 grey plates that match the evidence that Ian Wilkinson gave in his evidence? And Detective Leading Senior Constable Stephen Eppingstall from the homicide team replies no. So where are those plates? I mean, is the prosecution suggesting that she's got rid of the plates? Are we not hearing the whole story? Did they find the plates? Did they ask Erin, where are the plates? What was her answer? Now, also on that same day, the team conducted a separate search of her Mount Waverley home, which she was not present for. Now, during the testimony of Detective Leading Senior Constable Stephen Eppingstall, I would like to just call him Detective Eppingstall, it's much easier. The court watched a video of Erin's police interview. So when asked why she hosted the lunch, as a lot of people seem to be asking her, why are you making lunch for your ex's parents? A lot of people seem to be a little bit weirded out by this. Erin said she wanted to keep up the relationship with her estranged husband's family because she had no other family. Interesting to note also that none of the news items that have come out during the trial have mentioned that any of her family have been present. She has family. She has at least one sibling that we know of. She's got to have some family or friends. That's weird to me. Now, in the police interview, Erin also confirmed that she had a second phone, which was an old Nokia phone, and she had this in case her regular phone needed to be repaired. Do you have a spare phone? I don't have a spare phone. I don't know. I mean, maybe. If she had a business, if she was running a business, I would get it. But unless you're really running like your own business or you're doing something for work, I don't really see why you would need a second phone. Now, at the beginning of the search at the Leongatha house, Sergeant Farrell explained to Erin Patterson why the police were there, and they said it's in relation to a death, to which Erin replied, who died? So if she's to be believed, and he says, quote, she expressed surprise, apparently no one's called her to say, you know, Heather has passed away and Gail has unfortunately passed away. So that's weird because on the night of the lunch and the day after the lunch, she and Simon exchanged a lot of text messages. And then Simon, goes quiet? Is he distancing himself from Erin after the first deaths take place? It's just a theory. One other interesting thing that came up was that Erin was apparently left alone in a closed room within the house during that police search. And it was so that she could have a phone conversation with a lawyer. Now, apparently, this phone conversation took around 14 minutes or so. Now, let's talk about the factory reset. We know that EPAT did a factory reset of her phone in February 2023. But there were others as well, the week of the lunch. So the court was shown the digital forensics analysis report from phone B, which was the phone that the police now have in their possession. Phone A, we don't know where it is. Now, phone B shows that a factory reset was carried out at 1:20 p.m. on August 5th. Prosecutor Jane Warren says that if that is in Melbourne time, that would be during the search of Erin's house in Leongatha. But Jane Warren said that if it was in UTC time, you would have to add 10 hours, which would take us up to 11:20 p.m. So that would mean that the factory reset would have been done remotely because the phone had already been taken by police that afternoon. Now, what is UTC time? I didn't know what it was, so I Googled it. Coordinated Universal Time, UTC, is the primary time standard globally used to regulate clocks and time. It establishes a reference for the current time, forming the basis for civil time and time zones. It facilitates international communication, navigation, scientific research, and commerce. So if you were explaining this to me like I was 5, UTC time is like the time of planet Earth. Like if we all had to agree that there's one time for everyone on planet Earth, UTC time is it. Now, the police witness told the court that Ms. Patterson had a phone with her during their search and that she was using it during their search. Quote, she was talking about making arrangements for her daughter for ballet and that, but right from the start, she did have a phone, yes, he says. Now, that police interview that we were talking about with Erin Patterson, that took place after the home search at Leongatha, and that began at 4:41 p.m., and it took place at Wonthaggi Police Station, so not far from her home. The officer interviewing EPAT wants to know why everybody else that attended that lunch was so sick and she wasn't. In response, EPAT says this, quote, I'm sure you understand too that I've never been in a situation like this before, and I have been very, very helpful with the health department during the week because I wanted to help that side. I do want to know what happened, so I've given them as much information as they've asked for. I've given them as much information as they've asked for. I just can't help taking apart her words all the time because I presume that she's always either lying or bending the truth. Erin was also asked by police why Simon's family were invited for lunch, since she and Simon were no longer together. And she says, quote, because I've got no other family. I like them a lot. They've always been good to me and I want to maintain those relationships. She goes on to say, quote, they're the only family that I've got and the only grandparents my kids have, and I want them to stay in my kids' life. I think Simon hated that. That's a really interesting thing for her to say. I think Simon hated that. She went on to say that nothing her estranged husband Simon had ever done to her would change the fact that his family were, quote, good, decent people. So once again, I ask the question, why is she married to this man that she obviously dislikes so much? I mean, she dislikes him vocally. Also, if she liked his parents so much, why does she, behind their backs on Facebook, bag them out to her friends? Saying things like, I've had enough of this family. I just don't believe a word she says. I don't. Now, importantly, Detective Eppingstall asked if she'd foraged for mushrooms and told the jury that Erin Patterson shook her head and said, quote, never. He asked if she'd ever used a food dehydrator after police found a copy of a dehydrator manual during their search, but she said no. She said, quote, I've got manuals of lots of stuff. Okay. That's like saying, like I don't have a Dyson hairdryer. But I would have like a Dyson hairdryer manual in my bathroom drawer. Like, why would I have a manual to an appliance that I don't have? That's just weird to me. Oh, I don't get it. On another note, just quickly as well, the dehydrator was tested for poisons. Now, 7 samples from inside the dehydrator were sent for testing. 4 of those came back positive for death cap mushroom poison. Now, during that police interview, Erin was asked about that visit to Leongatha Hospital on July 31st, 2 days after the lunch, and why she had discharged herself just minutes after arriving. She said she had to go home, feed her animals, and pack a bag for her daughter, and then she returned to hospital. I don't believe this myself. I think if you've got animals, you feed them before you leave. She, I think, knew that they would have to carry out tests on her children because people were really sick from that lunch, and she told police that they ate leftovers. So this bag packing stuff, I don't buy it either. I think she went home to take a bunch of laxatives before she came back. So then when she came back to the hospital, it would look like she had a very severe stomach upset. But that's just my theory. At the hospital, she said that she spoke to Dr. Chris Webster, who we remember from, I think, around week 2 of the trial. He told her some of the lunch guests were extremely ill. And he also told her that he feared that they had poisoning connected to death cap mushrooms. Erin said, quote, I said, what? And then he started asking me about what food I had served. Okay, this is weird to me. So keep in mind, this is 2 days after the lunch. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier about, was Simon keeping his distance from her all of a sudden? So she's acting like this is the first she's heard about Simon's family being ill. Now, this is the thing. If you have food poisoning, you communicate with the other people that ate the same food as you, right? You call them, you say, watch out, take care of yourself. Are you sick? I'm sick. You communicate. So why was no one communicating with Erin? Were they communicating with someone else so that they could communicate with Erin? And by that, I mean the police. Now, Erin Patterson was allowed to go home after this police interview on the 5th of August. She was not actually arrested until the November of that year, so almost half a year later. They were onto her. Let's talk quickly about the subway CCTV footage. It's from July 29th at 7:22 p.m, the night after the lunch took place. In the CCTV footage, we see a red car driving in and a boy getting out. The court hears that this boy is allegedly Erin's son. The red car then drives out of the subway car park area onto the main street in Leongatha. Detective Eppingstall says that Erin's son went into the subway restaurant. Keep in mind, this is the day of the lunch. Why isn't she giving him leftovers on that day? 6 minutes later, another clip shows Erin's son leaving the subway and taking a seat on a bench outside. Then a third CCTV clip shows a red car pulling into the car park 11 minutes or so after the start of the first clip. Erin's son gets into the red car, which is then reversed and driven out of the car park. But Mr. Mandy, Erin's high-class barrister, has a problem with this footage and suggests that it's not actually footage of Erin Patterson. And I can see where he's coming from. He puts it to Detective Eppingstall that there is nothing else beside the vehicle consistent with Erin Patterson's vehicle and the teenager getting out of it that allows police to say that it is in fact Erin. Detective Eppingstall agrees with this suggestion, and keep in mind also, this is the height of winter in Victoria. It's going to be dark, so the footage might not be super clear. Mr. Mandy also shows a still from CCTV footage from inside the subway and suggests that the teenager pictured is not Erin Patterson's son. But Detective Eppingstall says, I believe it to be Erin Patterson's son, but that's a matter for the jury, which at the end of the day, it always is. Now, the cancer diagnosis. Spoiler alert, there is no cancer diagnosis. Detective Eppingstall was on to EPAT when it came to this so-called cancer story. He says he was aware that Erin had told the lunch guest that she had been diagnosed with cancer. Remember that cervical cancer on her elbow. He tells the court that he went to a series of local health organisations to obtain medical records for Erin Patterson, which I suppose if it's a legal case involving potential murder, I guess they can hand over any medical records to the police. I'm not really sure. Or in any case, they can certainly say if something didn't happen. As we've heard before, he also contacted the cancer registry, which showed there was no evidence of any diagnosis of cancer. Now, the survivor of the lunch, Ian, when he took the stand very early in the trial, he told the court that Erin had told all of the lunch guests that she had been diagnosed with cancer. And prosecutor Jane Warren asked Detective Eppingstall, there is no record of the accused ever having been diagnosed with cancer. And Detective Eppingstall says correct. Now, going back to that cervical cancer in the elbow, Gail's diary entries were shown to the court on Wednesday, 28th of June, 2023, about a month before the lunch. She had written into her diary, Erin, St. Vincent's arm lump. The court heard that there were no Medicare records of Erin visiting St. Vincent's on June 28th. And when the police contacted the hospital, they also had no record of any appointment for Erin. So it was a fabrication. But she continues with this lie. A series of text messages between she and Gail were shown to the court. Gail texted Erin, "Hi Erin, just wondering how you got on at your appointment today. Love, Gail and Don." To which Erin replied, "Hi Gail, sorry, I had taken my daughter to see a movie last night. We saw The Little Mermaid. The appointment went okay, thanks for asking. I had a needle biopsy taken of the lump and I'm returning for an MRI next week and will know more after the results of those two things." Lies, fabrications. The court was informed that there is no evidence Erin had ever been referred for or obtained an MRI. The biopsy is a lie, the MRI is a lie. Later, Gail asks Erin via text message again how her medical tests went. Erin replied, "Thanks for your message, Don and Gail. There's a bit to digest with everything that's come out of it all. I might talk more about it with you when I see you in person." A bit to digest. I actually hate her choice of words at this point. So a lot was said about these phones in court this week. And some messages between Erin and her Facebook friends were brought up in court, and they were dated from between the 17th and the 19th of December 2022. In the first one, Erin says, quote, "My phone screen is broken and it wouldn't respond to any commands or anything. Something suggested I could do a hard reboot of my phone and restart it in safe mode and it might fix the frozen screen issue, and it worked for now." So that was mid-December 2022. And I remember that was very shortly after the family fallout over Gail's birthday that they'd forgotten to invite Erin to. And Erin had got really angry about it, and she had written quite nasty messages about Simon in the family chat. And remember, Simon told the court that it was around this time that Gail stopped looking at messages from Erin due to the anxiety it caused her. So later, Erin messages the Facebook group and she says, "I had to buy a new phone today because I couldn't get the other one fixed. I don't know why, but setting up a new phone is incredibly stressful for me. I got a Samsung Galaxy A23, the cheapest I could get while not being an absolute piece of shit phone. It was still $400 though." So again, the money issue. She's sustaining this narrative that she's financially really struggling. A lot was also said in court this week about the SIM card being moved between devices. So Detective Eppingstall says to the court that EPAT had supplied a Samsung Galaxy A23 to police at the end of the search of the home on August 5th. So that's the $400 phone that she mentioned in the chats. He says that the SIM card in that phone was connected to a number ending in 835. The court hears that the phone checks revealed that number had only been connected as of July 11, 2023. So she'd not only got a new phone within the last few months, but she'd also got a whole new SIM card as well. So she's actually got two numbers. At 1:45 p.m. on the 5th of August 2023, we see the actual SIM card change from phone A to a different phone, Detective Eppingstall told the court. So on that day, during the house search, she also changed the SIM card. Now, the SIM card went from phone A. They know it's a Nokia phone. They've never been able to find that phone. Why is she changing SIM cards when her house is being searched by police? And where is the phone? Have they asked her? I mean, they must have asked her, "Where's this Nokia phone? You've just changed the SIM card on the day that the police were at your house. Where is the phone?" And what excuse did she give? It's very strange to me. I feel like we're not hearing the whole story. It's almost like she hasn't been cooperative with police, but they're not actually saying that in court. What they're just saying is, "We couldn't find the phone." Why couldn't you find the phone? Just ask Erin where it is. Is she just not telling you? Is she doing the no comment? Is her legal team telling her not to tell you where the phone is? It's very strange. further search warrant was executed at Erin Patterson's home on 22nd November 2023. And we all remember that from the news. Remember when they sent in those special dogs? They were like technology dogs, and they could sniff out, iPads and things. The purpose of that search was to locate several items, including the other mobile phone we have been hearing about. Now, if those dogs, those special technology dogs, couldn't find that phone, that means that it's off-site. It's been taken away somewhere. Could it be that she took it to the tip with the dehydrator and it was just never found because maybe that was in her pocket? She was carrying, the dehydrator is big. So in the CCTV footage, you can see her carrying the dehydrator, but you can't see the phone. Maybe she's just chucked that phone in to the tip as well, and it's just gone by the wayside because no one was thinking about it. Where's the phone, Erin? Anyway, long story short, the Nokia phone was never found. So the court was shown more screen grabs from the iNaturalist website found on Erin's computer, followed by a food order from the Corumburra Middle Pub later that day on May 28th, 2022. So that's like 14 months before the lunch. So Detective Eppingstall says that home delivery to Erin Patterson's home was requested for the family meal. Why is that significant to us? Well, we know that it was Erin's computer that looked at the iNaturalist website because she then ordered food from the pub to be delivered directly to her home. We also heard some medical notes from a doctor that had seen Erin Patterson in the past. And the doctor describes Erin being worried about ovarian cancer in October of 2021. And this is when we start hearing about Erin sort of catastrophizing about her health and really bringing other people into that. The doctor wrote, quote, Erin has been Googling her symptoms, thinks her symptoms may be suggestive of ovary cancer. And then tests were scheduled to investigate with some early results all fine, quote, but other further tests were ordered by the doctors. And to date, apparently no cancer. If she had cancer, we would hear about it. She would be turning up to court. She would look ill, or she wouldn't be allowed to go to court. She probably wouldn't be allowed in public because it would be a danger to her health. Anyway, the record states that Erin had a family history of ovarian cancer in aunties on both her dad and her mum's side of the family, and that's why she was really worried about getting cancer. She was also worried about her heart. Signal messages shown to the court between Erin and Simon also show that she suspected she had heart troubles and said, "It's my heart that's troubling me. I'm struggling with the energy to do basic things like get in and out of the car. And after I have a shower, I need to lie down and rest because the whole ordeal exhausts me." The whole ordeal. She likes people to know that her life is really hard. And this is something that comes up over and over again with her. She goes on to say, and this is interesting, quote, "I think we need to upgrade our health insurance so I can start chewing through the waiting period." She is hell-bent on having a serious medical issue. However, this is very interesting to me. She has this huge issue with hospitals. On January 24, 2015, and let's remember that that was the year that she and Simon officially broke up. They officially separated. Erin Patterson left Gippsland Southern Health Service under full mental capacity. We don't know exactly why she was admitted to hospital, but she was there. The note said, quote, "Patient became fidgety and anxious, stating she wanted to be discharged," the record reads. Patient was now out of bed, walking around, pacing, and asked nurse to stop IV and disconnect so she could leave. So she wants to be ill. She's telling people that she's sick, but she won't be treated. It's very, very strange. However, this is the narrative that defense barrister Colin Mandy wants us to believe. She's just scared of hospitals. That's her problem. The thing is, there's a difference between being scared of hospitals and being part of a potential triple murder case. If you're in court or you have a situation where a lunch that you have cooked has killed 3 people, you're just going to deal with any hospital visits that you have to do. Or even if at this point they were very, very, very sick. There's something about this case that doesn't make sense. How did she know? How was she so confident that she and the children would not need medical care after that lunch? Leave your comments in the comment section below if you're on YouTube. And if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star review. We will see you next time for week 6. Bye, Fridgies. And don't forget, be creepy, but don't be a creep.